Hello everybody and welcome to today's Wednesday's Reflexology Wisdom, and I'm delighted that we have a fantastic panel of speakers with us, and we have got, let's do the ladies first, all the way from South Africa where it's a chilly winter at the moment. We have Chris Stormer Fryer. So Chris, if you could just say hello so people can see you.
I'm going to do a millionaire thing.
Okay, that sounds perfect.
I'm just saying I'm doing a millionaire thing. They always wave.
Oh, excellent. Lovely. Thank you very much. From the beautiful Emerald Isle from the Republic of Ireland, we have got Catriona Plunkett.
Hi, David. Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Fabulous. We're going to do all the ladies first because we are chivalrous here. And then from my favourite holiday destination, from the beautiful island of Madeira, we have Vanessa Santos.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today with you.
And then certainly last but certainly not least. That's the way around I meant to say it. We have my friend from Israel, Moshe Kruchik.
Hello everybody. Boker Tov, mi Israel.
Fabulous.
I said it in Hebrew.
You said, that was in Hebrew.
Yeah.
Moshe, how many languages do you speak?
Actually 6.
God.
I forgot 5.
Do you not ever get confused?
Well, sometimes when I give a lesson in Italian, then I have to speak in Portuguese with Vanessa, and then I have to make the switch. It takes me 2 minutes to be in the right language, but it's okay.
All I will say is I totally take my hat off to you. You are amazing. Anyway, without any further ado, we're going to start our first question. So, Catriona Hedges, I believe you're from North Queensland, Australia?
Unmute again. Hi, yes, I am from Townsville. It's about after 7 p.m. here. So
fabulous. Well, it's just wonderful to have. We have people from all over the world asking questions today, so it's just wonderful. This is. So, Catriona, could you please ask your question?
So I was curious about the vagus nerve, like an actual helper point. I know the ones on the hands, but I'm just wondering on the feet. Is there a specific vagus nerve reflection point on the feet?
Okay, now then, Catriona, you are going to be really, really pleased to know that Chris has drawn a diagram specifically for you. I mean, it's beautiful because I've seen it already. So, Chris, would you like to answer this question first? And I am wanting to also to come to Catriona and Moshe on this one as well. But can we have Chris first, please? And Chris, when you are ready for the picture to come up, do please let me know.
Fantastic. Hi, Catriona. The vagus nerve in the universal technique, there is no one point on it. So David's going to show the diagram now. Aren't you, David?
I am. Hang on a second. It's just coming up.
David, the diagram.
Yep, it's just coming. Hang on.
Oh, yay. Thank you.
Hang on. Oh dear. It's gone sideways. This is how not to do it. Hang on a second. So there we go. That's that. And I need to now.
I've got it here.
You've got it? Hang on. I need to share it. Yep. Oh, hang on.
You've got a better copy of it, though.
Yes.
Anyway, I'll carry on talking. So really, because the vagus nerve goes from the base of the brain and down the outer edges of the neck, and because this is reflected in all the toe necks, you're going to find the reflexes from the base of all the little toes. Aha! We've got some of the picture. Let me just lose that. So if you look at the vagus nerve, as you can see in the middle, I've just put the base of the brain and the 7 cervical vertebrae, and then the vagus nerve coming down either side. So you would find the vagus nerve down each edge of the little toes, the outer edges of all the little toes. And then you would also find, because it spreads, it goes along the base of the toe necks. I hope that helps you.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. So, I know that let's have Moshe next. I know that Moshe, you've got an answer for this one. So, could we have your input, please?
Yeah, well, it's it's a bit similar to Chris, however, with a different approach. Let's say that the vagus nerve is born here in the medulla oblongata, in the base of the brain, it's cervical 7. But then, when the vagus nerve is the only cranial nerve that goes out of the brain, goes out of the cranium to visit, and this is the name of the vagus. Vagus in Latin means wanderer. It is not a symmetric nerve. It has two branches, one afferent and one efferent. And then it will visit some plexuses, like the first one, the cardiac plexus, the pulmonar plexus, the solar plexus, the gastric plexus, then the pancreatic plexus, then the splenic plexus, then the renal plexus, and then it will go down all the way through the bowels to come back to the brain through the bowels, the biliar plexus, the hepatic plexus, and all the way up through the gastric plexus again, the pulmonary plexus, the cardiac plexus, and back to the medulla oblongata.
Fabulous. Thank you, Moshe. That's brilliant. Catriona, I know you've also got some input on this one.
Yeah, I suppose when you're training, generally you learn that the vagus nerve is in the head. You know, that reflex is in the head. In craniosacral reflexology, they covered in the little toe, which is really interesting. They have the cranial nerves spread over the toes. So I'm always conscious of working the little toe really well, and the toes in general really well. Moshe's description is really good as well, because when you consider the vagus nerve, it is the wandering nerve, so it's not just in one place. It travels and it covers, you know, it's probably the most interesting of the cranial nerves, because it has an influence on so many different bodily functions. And Chris's diagram is beautiful. I haven't seen that before. That's amazing, Chris.
There we go. So this is fabulous, because I am learning. I love it, these panels, because there's always something that I've not discovered before. So that's fabulous. Now, I don't think we've got Pauline O'Hagan with us. If we have, could Pauline just quickly shout out? No, we haven't. Okay, so I'm going to read a question that Pauline O'Hagan has asked. And it's a brilliant question. And Vanessa, I would like you to answer this one first, if you would, please. So Pauline asks, I would just like to ask the panel, what response do they give when the client asks, following a session, wow, what did you find?
Well, in fact, my answer is the obvious one. I tell the truth. I always start my session with a quick foot reading. So I try to understand what the feet are telling me, and I make some questions to my patients. What happened to you? Because it seems to me that you feel more oppressed, or that you're feeling more drained, without energy. So in the beginning of the session, they have one idea. What changed from the last session from this one? In the end, when I'm working, everyone wants to see the pictures, the after and the before, like the TV shows. And they always ask me, so what I do is to pick up the pictures to show and to compare them and tell you, well, when I started, your feet were telling me this. Now your feet are like that. What happens from now, it's up to you. So I always give some homeworks to my patients based on TCM. Most of them were created by me. For those who don't know, my method, it's the 5 elements theory. And so the elements are the base of my work. And I always give them some tips to connect with 1 or 2 of the elements that will help them to keep the balance until the next session. So when I don't diagnose, but what I tell them it's the truth. It's what I see in the feet, and they give me their feedback so we can work together and make some kind of a therapeutic plan until the next session. So
wonderful.
it's always the best answer.
That's good. Vanessa, when you were saying about the pictures, is that you're taking a photograph before?
Yes, I take a photograph with my cell phone, yeah.
And then a photograph after so they can see. Chris, I know you've got some input on this question for us as well.
Absolutely. Like Vanessa, I do believe in honesty, but I think if you say right at the beginning that we are not able to diagnose with reflexology, I mean, we all know that, but to say to them that we are going to be massaging their feet so that they feel better about themselves, I personally will leave it at that, because I let the reflexology do what it does naturally without interfering with that process. But what I do love to do is I love to give them something positive. Vanessa was saying that as well. In my case, I'll just give them something really positive about themselves so that when they leave, that is what they take away with them. So I enjoyed her explanation beautifully. Thank you.
Excellent. Now then, we've got a question from Maureen Taylor and Maureen Spencer even. I did get a message from her saying that she wasn't able to make it. But she asks, and it's a great, do you know what, this is a really interesting one. Our authors haven't replied to this one, and it's because they're too modest. Her question is, what books would anyone recommend for reading? She says, I've read some reflexology books, but would like to add more. Now, what I'm going to do is to completely embarrass our speakers here, because what I don't know is what Maureen has already written. But she should definitely read Chris's Hot-Footing It to Better Health. And she should definitely read some of Moshe's books as well. I mean, his foot reading book that I read, Analysing Personality Patterns, is absolutely fabulous. Catriona and Vanessa, I don't think I can embarrass you, because I don't think you've written the book, have you?
No, I haven't written any books, David. My favourite books, probably, I have lots of reflexology books, like probably everybody here, we have lots of books. Chris is certainly a standard for, you know, a book that every reflexologist should have. Absolutely. It was recommended to me as a student. I recommend it to all my students. Language of the Feet, fantastic book. And yes. I think I have all Chris's books, in fact. Beryl Crane is, I don't know if that's available to buy anymore, but the Definite Practitioner's Guide, I don't know if anybody has that book. I thought that's a big chunky book full of comprehensive information around reflexology, the meridians, hand reflexology, diet, nutrition, fabulous book. That's a really good, almost encyclopedia size book. Current favorite book, with an ebook, is Angela Telford's Visual Reflexology, which is full of fantastic information, and she's constantly updating it. She's really generous with her knowledge. So I love Angela Telford's ebook. It's fantastic. I'm hoping she'll publish a written book. I'd like to get my hands on a written book of hers. So there's lots of fantastic authors out there, I think.
And Angela Telford's somebody that I've got in my sights to have on one of our panels as well, because she is amazing. You're absolutely right. Vanessa, any books that you would be recommending that people should have a read of? Vanessa?
My network is down, but I'm back now. I have one theory, and it's mostly because, you know, TCM, it's not only one medicine, it's one philosophy of life. And I truly believe that the right books will find you in the right time. I absolutely love Chris books and Moshe books, and of course ink dogments, because it incorporates the traditional Chinese medicine. But I think that books that are not directly linked with reflexology can be very helpful. For instance, I found this little book, and it's Portuguese, but it's Occult Science in Medicine, and the name tells nothing about reflexology, but when you read the book, you'll see that it tells everything about reflexology. It was a doctor from the past century that wrote it, And so the most amazing inspiration came from the book You'll Expect. So keep an open mind and try to read as much as you can, and you will have wonderful surprises. That's my advice.
I like that. Keep an open mind and you will have wonderful surprises. That's perfect. Perfect. Now then, we have Lee Taylor with us. You have got a question, and it was specifically for Chris, I believe, wasn't it?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, panel. Good morning, David. Yes. Good morning, Chris. How are you? Long time no see.
Ages.
I know it's been a long time, hasn't it? I can't believe that it's been 25 years since we first worked together on Language of the Feet. And that was a real turning point for me in terms of my foot analysis work and what I've gone on to do as a result of that. That was a real inspiration in my early career. What would you say was the inspiration for you earlier on in your career as well?
Oh, thank you for this, Lee. Well, actually, I wanted nothing to do with feet at all, as you may remember. But the universe said, no, you're going to be doing feet. So I would say that primarily it was the universe who inspired me, because they gave me the information. For those who don't know me, I channel through the universal information. But then, having shared it with so many amazing delegates and having the most fantastic organizers, that inspired me hugely, because of course, as you present, you learn from the delegates, and their stories are always phenomenal. And I've learned so much from them. And then, of course, once the feet started talking and I understood the language of the feet, there was no stopping them and there was no stopping me. So thank you for the question. Lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to bring Moshe in for the next question, because we have a question from Rose Manoli Quinn, who again has, for some reason, I guess technical difficulties, hasn't been able to make connection with us this morning. But Moshe, her question, it's a three-part question. What are the best reflexes to work for chronic pain conditions? Is there an approach to working the tender areas that provide more relaxation than pain? And then finally, what reflexology styles can be combined to ease the symptoms and discomfort of pain? And Catriona, just so I can have you on standby as well, when Moshe is finished, I'd love you to come in as well on this question. So Moshe, over to you.
Well, I don't know if I have enough time to answer this question, because it can be integrated by many aspects. The first aspect is to understand what osteoarthritis is. And osteoarthritis is a degenerative kind of arthritis where the cartilage runs down. That means the cartilage is that piece of tissue that supports, that separates two bones as to avoid the friction. So when the cartilage wears out, so it invites the two bones to be together and to have this contact that they shouldn't have, and to make severe restrictions in movement, and of course a lot of pain. Now, when you have a patient with osteoarthritis, you can't go back where it was. You can only avoid further damage or try to stop the influence of that damage in your normal functioning. Now, when a person has osteoarthritis, as I said, you cannot go back and make it flexible as when she was 12 years old, because it is progressive and degenerative. And therefore, what are the best reflexes to work for chronic pain conditions? Well, if it is a general question, there is a whole concept for the treatment of pain that involves all the structures in the body, the nervous system, the endocrine system, and other pieces of the body our parts of the body that work on the parasympathetic system as to relax the body. So what are the best reflexes to work for chronic pain? If the answer goes specifically to the condition of osteoarthritis, first of all, we must know where the osteoarthritis is. Let's say that this is in the knees. What I do in the cases of osteoarthritis is, well, I combine another concept that I have found very useful for myself. That is, if I want to have a dynamic response of the body, then I should work as a reflexologist in a dynamic way. And this means to combine movement with reflexology. So to stimulate the effort or the movement at the same time that I am doing the reflexes. I am working on the reflexes. Of course, in the case of osteoarthritis, my capacity of moving or just to flex or add more flexibility will be very limited because of the damage done. So, but the full part of the glass is that you can still work on the flexibility just to avoid further damage and to make make the progression of osteoarthritis slower. I would recommend my patient to do some exercise, smooth exercise, like walking in the water, doing flexibility exercises in the water, swimming, as far as the person can do that. Is there an approach to working the tender areas that provide more relaxation than pain? The whole body does it. That means when the body has to deal with pain, it starts with one focused area for pain, but it is the whole body involved in that. And if the whole body is involved in creating the pain, the whole body will be involved in eliminating the pain too. In the case of osteoarthritis, is a lot of what you do in your normal life and how can you do reflexology to avoid further damage and, of course, to avoid the pain. What reflexology styles can be combined to ease the symptoms or discomfort? Reflexology in motion, reflexology with a lot of relaxation, working on the nervous system just to control the pain, and of course, working on the structures as to give a better performance to the machine. That means here I work I have a personal technique that I call the tree that works on all the structures of the body that allows the body to be in constant movement and to be in constant dynamic. One thing is very important to remember, and it is that when osteoarthritis or whatever kind of arthritis come to visit our body, we have to be attentive enough as to do more exercise and to do and to stimulate more movement. Otherwise, it would be like giving up to the illness.
Perfect. I like that. It's almost that phrase that if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Exactly.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Moshe.
You're welcome.
Right, now we're going to...
May I please add the emotional, spiritual aspect to osteoarthritis?
Go for it. Go on, they're fabulous.
I loved what Moshe said, and it was fantastic. And I totally agree with him. With any condition, you do the whole reflexology treatment. But when it comes to the emotional, spiritual side, it really helps to understand what has been going on in the person's life, because it's very, very different for each person. If you take the word osteo, of course, that is bone, and bone is being one of a kind. If you take the word be one, and bone issues often arise when we cannot be one of a kind. I know I break many bones because I'm breaking away from conforming, but weakness of bones is a different story altogether. arthritis is being arthritis, and this is not to judge, condemn, or criticize, is to understand that some people have been brought up incredibly strictly, particularly my generation. I had an army officer dad, and right and wrong, black and white, and you have to do as you're told. So there was a lot of righteousness. And as a result of that, because people were so frightened to test the bounds, they became rigid. So osteoarthritis is very much connected to being one of a kind, but yet not being able to be one of a kind, if that makes sense, because of all the boundaries that are put there. So the questions I would ask, not just for osteoarthritis, but to get to the root of any situation, is firstly, when did this start? And this is always a key question, because you can see what was going on emotionally at that time, not necessarily just in that person's life, but possibly in a parent's life. And how did you feel about what was going on at that time? And then for them to keep answering the questions until they find the solution for themselves. But in the meantime, as Moshe says, doing the reflexology and exercise is fantastic.
I would say for gentle techniques, work gentle techniques, compression work would be lovely, linking techniques, gentle linking techniques, and just, nice and slow and gentle and not heavy pressure. I'm an advocate of gentle pressure. Anyway, I know that's that's not everybody's style, but I don't believe reflexology should hurt anyway in the first place. But that's not that it, if it's deep, it's not effective. But I think it can be just effective when it's gentle. So I would just work very gently with that client. And depending on where the issue is, then you're focusing on those reflexes, pituitary, cranial nerves, spinal reflex, all the usual, and lots of diaphragm work with deep breath work to help them relax as well. But there's no reason that you couldn't work them. And obviously, it can't be like if the feet are structurally painful, you have to be very mindful as well. You might need to use the hands instead.
Perfect, wonderful. Because this is a question for everyone from the lovely Paula Hewlett. Unmute yourself, please. Yes.
Okay, well, thanks for this. Hello. My question is, what changes have you seen in the feet of clients who are nearing death? So I've pondered this since about 2009, when I'd only just qualified, and I'd seen a huge transformation in a lady who I'd worked on all through my training. And just about 10 days before she left us, her feet were completely different. But I guess the additional question is, what should I do with that information?
Okay. Who fancies answering this one first? Catriona, Christina, or Vanessa? Which?
I'll go for it.
Oh, yeah.
Go for it. Go on then, Chris. Go on, Chris.
Paula, I've only had the honor and privilege of seeing one person near death. And what I witnessed at that time was the disappearance of most of the markings on the feet. And I saw it almost like as wiping the slate clean. As you well know, the ancient Egyptians used to remove the soles of the feet of their elite. And this was to set the soul free. So I don't know if there's a correlation there, and I'm not sure what you can do with that information.
Well, I work in a hospital in one service called internal medicine. And unfortunately, there many of the patients eventually die. And I didn't study reflexology yet. It was about 2 years later, but all the nurses there start to pay attention, because when you work every day with those kind of patients, there are some signs that you start to catch your attention. You start to making the link, and it starts to being obvious to you. So it's not a standard time. Some people are 1 week before, some people are 5 days or 2 days, but it's very often to the feet to be pale with purple spots, lighter, and when you touch them, they are like I don't know, like fluffy, you know. It doesn't have the same consistency. Okay, it's much. I Of course that in the hospital it was different because I wasn't a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I was not going to say to the families your patient is going to die, but we could have a subtle conversation. Your patient, your family is very old. He's feeling a bit down. It's better if you start thinking in all the options and prepare yourself. If there's someone that wants to speak with him, he may want to hurry up a little bit because he may recover, but he's feeling very down at this moment. In the reflexology, it happens for me a couple of times. The difference about my approach was the relationship that I had with the family and the patient itself, because one of the situations, it was the aunt of one of my friends. So he was my friend, and I was already friend of the family. I was not only the therapist. And he called me for one opinion because another therapist from other medicine told him that the doctors were wrong and it wasn't cancer. But when I did the reflexology, I really felt the agony of death. Not only all the symptoms I told you, sometimes feet can also be very swollen. It happens. But in this case, I had to stop the reflexology. It was the only time that it happened to me in my career, because I really felt really bad and I knew that she was going to die. So in the end of the session, he was very hopeful that the doctors were wrong, and I talked with him, and I know it's not what you want to hear, but you better prepare because your aunt is going to die. I felt her agony, and she died a couple of days later. And the story ends with me doing reflexology to him during her funeral. So it was one unique experience. But in the other case, it was one patient of mine, but I wasn't a friend. I was the therapist. I had a close relationship, but I didn't tell the family because it wasn't up to me. They were not expecting it because he suffered from the heart, but he was very active. He was struggling with lots of problems, so they know that he wasn't okay. I tell you, you should pay attention to your husband, be around him. He's a bit down, but I didn't open the game. So I guess it depends on the context where you are, of the kind of the relationships you have with the patient and the family, and the situation itself. It's not a rule, in my opinion.
Thank you, Vanessa. That's great. Catriona, this was a question for all the panel. Do you have an input on this one?
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess it depends on where the person is at, as they're nearing the end. I have seen with a good friend a couple of years ago that had cancer. She, nearing the end, she wasn't in any pain. She was comfortable. She was ready to go. And like Chris said, it's as if her feet became soft. They were pale, but they were soft. And it's like most of the stress lines disappeared from her feet. It was beautiful because it was like she was ready to go. She had suffered a lot, but at this stage she was ready to go. But I suppose in a hospital situation, like Vanessa said, that's different, isn't it? So you're in a hospital situation, so that potentially could be more stressful for the person. But I think it's if the person is ready to go and they're comfortable and they're not in any discomfort, that's different, isn't it? So can really depend on the person, but it's such a privilege to work with people at that. It's not a client I would see very often. It's not somewhere I have a lot of experience, but just with family and friends I've seen. It's a real privilege to be able to give reflexology to somebody at that stage of their life, isn't it?
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to move on to our next question now. So this is from Tanya Kemp. I think she's had connection problems as well. So her question, and this is to Catriona, is a client has prolapsed disc in the neck, now causing neuropathic pain down all the right side. What would be the most effective reflexes to work in this scenario?
Yeah, interesting one. Well, I guess I always do a full treatment on all clients, and you're going to really focus on I imagine pain is an issue there. So you're going to focus on reflexes that will help to soothe and relax that client and give them relief from pain. Yeah, it might even be and work quite lightly, because it might be I imagine the reflexes are going to be very tender, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, Moshe, you're a bit of an expert on pain. Is there anything that you would like to add? Because we've already talked about treatment of pain already, haven't we? Is there anything extra that you would be wanting to add in on this one?
Yeah, I might have something to add to Catriona's beautiful answer. I would say that first of all, there is a principle that I always follow as one of the big principles in reflexology. Reflexology has a great impact in physiology, but it doesn't have any impact on anatomy. That means a prolapsed disc is a change in the anatomy of the body. That means something that was in a place displaces and makes some damage. That means I cannot bring the prolapse back. I can only deal with the physiological conditions and the consequences of the prolapsed disc. Now causing neuropathic pain down all right side. It means that from the cervical area, from the cervical plexus, I would need to continue to identify where the pain is. If the neuropathic pain is in the arms, I would need to complement that with the brachial plexus, with the structures that support the brachial plexus, and with and even if with the sacral plexus, if the neuropathic pain goes to the lower limbs. What are the most effective reflexes to work in this scenario? Are the reflexes corresponding to all the diaphragms in the body: cervical plexus, brachial plexus, and that's it. And of course, yeah, it is a whole integrative area, a whole integrative treatment.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, Sharon Morgan, sorry?
Could I very quickly, sorry, just explain the emotional, spiritual side of pain? I'm sorry, but I just can't resist it. If you take the word pain, in, and a lot of men have suppressed their feelings. Big boys don't cry, etc., etc. And because our issues go back 7 generations or more, we take on a lot of that memory. And so pain also need to look at father's story. What did he go through? What was going on in his life? And as Moshe said, a lot of pain from the war times. Now I'll shut up for a little while.
Chris, you are a darling, you really are. Okay, we are going to go to Sharon Morgan, and just so that we can try to get a little bit back on track for time, because we were sort of way overrunning at the moment. Sharon, could you have your question, please?
Yeah, I was just wondering if anybody's specifically worked with people who have a dual diagnosis of addictions and mental health. I've worked in that area before, and there's a huge gap for services. So I'm just wondering if there's any specialisms out there that can be used to treat people to get back on track, or if there's been any research done or anything like that with recovery, and how reflexology can help with that.
Lovely. So what I would like to do is, if I can specifically ask Vanessa on this one, please, especially being as we have got your conventional healthcare background as well.
Yeah, that's a pleasure to answer to it. In fact, Sharon, this is a huge problem. Since COVID, teenagers are suffering a lot from mental illness. The problem is getting bigger, and the truth is that drugs doesn't solve it. It's like a quick bench, but the root of the problem is not solved with medication. So yes, mental health, it's a very broad subject. It depends on what you are talking about, because the approach is not always the same. What happened is that, for instance, I work in an emergency service, and so I am the front line, and I am able to do reflexology in the hands, quick treatments, 5 to 10 minutes, and for instance, in case of anxiety, panic, depression, you can help a little bit. Of course, it won't work for a long, but at least the symptoms at the moment are controlled. And in fact, some of the doctors call me to help with those patients. If you are if you're asking about addictions like alcohol, drugs, the problem is more complex. I also work with it. It implies a network team. You can't do anything by all. There's very little things that you can do alone, but when you work together and there is a commitment from the patient and the family, yes, you can get results. It's a very slow process. You have to be very patient, and there's a lot ups and downs, because it's not easy for them to change in the same environment, and they need a lot of support. Many times the family is very tired and give up on them, so they end up on the streets. So it's not easy thing to do, but it's possible. About reflexology specifically, there are some tips. I work with traditional Chinese medicine, and according to it, the heart is the seat of the psyche. So everything that is related with the mind and the control of mental health is under the control of the heart. And for that, I create one technique that I call Brave Heart, that it helps in many things, but one of the things it can be useful, it's on these cases. Another important reflex in the addictions is the spleen, because, in traditional Chinese medicine, everything that is about compulsion and obsession is about the element earth. And if you think a little bit, it makes sense, because when you are addicted to something, you are trying to fill one hole that you have inside you, and you are not able to feed your needs. So you try to compensate that hole that you bring, that unhappiness that you feel, with things from the outside, because you're not able to fix it in your inner side. So in this perspective, the spleen, it's always very important to work with, and also the heel area, because the heel, it's the earth element. Another very important reflex is the liver, because the liver is the emotional discipline, and many of these patients, or all of them, have discipline issues. They don't follow rules, they do whatever they want, they don't sleep well. The drugs itself will interfere with the liver. So if you're asking for top tips, I would say do a triangle between kidney, heart, spleen, or kidney, heart, liver. You can do it in the hands. And why a triangle? Because a triangle is also associated with the element fire, and the fire is under the control of the heart. And like I told you, the heart is the seat of the psyche. So this is only one small tip, but there is a very complex process. You can do it, but you won't always be effective. And you have to know that it's not your fault, because you must have commitment from the patient, and that's a very, very hard thing to achieve. Another important thing to work on is the solar plexus, because they have to balance their ego and their relationship with themselves. So, but this is, like I told you, a quick bench,
Vanessa, that's fabulous. Thank you so much. And top tips, absolutely top tips for such an important issue that we have in our society today. A very quick question for Chris Stormer from Roseanne Carhill. When are you coming to Ireland?
To be sure, I'll be back. I'm hoping to be back in April. It all depends on, obviously, the world situation and traveling. But already I've chatted to Deirdre in Sligo, and we're looking at April. And also the fabulous Bev Green in Canada, Toronto. So it's all in the air at the moment. But I'll be back someday.
Fabulous, fabulous. Now, Moshe, Miriam, who sent us a question in Spanish, can't be with us. I'm going to ask the question in English. You've got it written out in Spanish. Would you be able to then translate it into Spanish so that any of our Spanish speakers can also understand it? And then could you translate could you sort of answer it in Spanish as well? Because I believe you told me she doesn't actually speak English, does she?
I will do my best.
That's great. So Miriam asks, I have a patient with carpal tunnel problems for years. And in the complication of this difficulty, the index and middle fingers suffer from trigger finger. Only waking in the morning, both fingers get stuck. After a while, they have no difficulty in moving, and this happens every morning when my client wakes up. Since reflexology, her carpal tunnel situation has improved, but I don't know how to treat her with the difficulty in her trigger fingers of the same hand. A few months ago, she suffered a fall and sprained that hand. She soon recovered from the discomfort of the fall caused, but since that fall, he began with his other difficulty in the mornings of the fingers. He also has some discomfort at the elbow, which he identifies as a result of the fall he suffered. Over to you, Moshe.
Before I answer the question to Miriam, I will say that I will be in Ireland before Chris.
Oh, fabulous!
Yes, end of September, and 2 weeks after that at Paula's in Sobridgeworth. But to the question in Spanish. Hola Miriam, ¿cómo estás? Bueno, voy a leer nuevamente tu pregunta en español. Tengo un paciente con problemas de túnel carpiano que trae hace años y en la complicación de esta dificultad el dedo índice y medio últimamente sufren de dedos gatillos. Solamente al despertarse por la mañana ambos dedos se traban, luego de un rato no tienen dificultad en el movimiento. Esto le hace todas las mañanas al despertarse. A partir de la reflexología, su situación con respecto al túnel carpiano ha mejorado considerablemente, mas no sé cómo tratar su dificultad con los dedos gatillos de la misma mano. Hace algunos meses sufrió una caída y torció dicha mano. Pronto se recuperó de las molestias que la caída le ocasionó, pero a partir de esa caída comenzó con esta dificultad por las mañanas en los dedos. Refleja también cierta molestia a nivel codo que identifica como consecuencia de la caída que sufrió. Primero voy a responder en castellano. Mira, a ver, tú ya aprendiste conmigo la técnica para trabajar sobre el túnel carpiano. Y o sea que mucho más allá de lo que ya estás haciendo, no hay mucho. Lo que yo sugiero es que cuando esa persona se levanta, y si ese es el problema que tiene, que intente colocar una pelota o algo flexible en su mano y presionar. Y presionar algo flexible hasta donde pueda, sin esfuerzo. Y eso, si le lleva un tiempo, bueno, con mucha paciencia y respirando profundamente. ¿Sí? Y haciendo este tipo de ejercicio. Puede ser que esta persona tenga dos problemas en vez de uno, que no sea solamente el túnel carpiano, sino que también haya un daño, que haya un desgarro, que haya una tendinitis, que haya una epicondilitis medial o lateral. Eso no lo sabemos, pero eso tiene que ser parte del diagnóstico. Y lo único que te puedo sugerir es también intentar trabajar el reflejo con movimiento y con hielo, así como lo aprendiste en el curso al que viniste a Montevideo. Now in English. So this person has a problem with carpal tunnel syndrome for years. She has been helping him to deal with the pain with some techniques that I showed in the course that she has done in Montevideo, Uruguay, some years ago. And then what I suggest to Miriam is just to squeeze a flexible ball before she wakes. Well, when this person wakes up and before he stands up and gets off the bed, to do some exercise for some minutes, like 10 minutes, squeezing a ball, a flexible ball, very softly, as to exercise the fingers, breathing deeply, as to nurture herself with the oxygen and giving herself much more power at the moment of squeezing, and maybe to combine reflexology with motion and even with ice. But this is a whole technique that I have already taught her, and she knows it very well.
Fabulous. Moshe, muchas gracias. Many thanks.
De nada, con mucho gusto.
Okay, Catriona, I would like to call you in for the next question, if I may. This is from Karen Smith. She was with us until a few moments ago. Sadly, there has been a family emergency and she's had to go. She says, I'm interested in learning more about linking techniques. This is sometimes also known as precision reflexology, and wonder whether the panel use them as a standalone treatment or during a full treatment. At the moment I use links ad hoc throughout the treatment, but feel that there is a more structured approach. So Catriona, could you sort of address that one maybe?
Hi Karen, structure is boring, isn't it? So I'll just bring them in.
I love that.
Bring them in when you feel it, when you intuitively feel it. I think you can't structure a set treatment for any client, can you? You have to kind of go with it and see what shows up and be guided. I'm always mindful of using the linking techniques. I think they're amazing. I also think they're very powerful. So, if you spent a full hour doing linking techniques, your client could have steam coming out of their ears. They're very powerful. So you have to respect them. I think Jan Williamson is a genius creating linking techniques. I think many of us have probably been to lots of postgraduate trainings and linking techniques are included. It's just her techniques have spread across so many different ailments and clients. I would even use them with children, but I'm very mindful when I'm using them with children that I'm very gentle and I don't necessarily link, I tap. So it's a very gentle linking when I'm using it. But I would bring them into treatments, not in a structured way at all, really when I feel they're necessary. And I always, I like to see how clients react to my, generic reflexology treatment first, as opposed to going straight in with linking, because you never know how anybody reacts to a treatment. So it's not something I generally use on a first treatment. I would integrate them after that. But as I would just be guided by your intuition when you feel ready to, when the time is right.
Perfect. I wholeheartedly agree with that answer. Wholeheartedly agree. Fabulous. Vanessa, there was a second part to this question, which I think you will be perfect for. How useful do you find traditional Chinese medicine, and what advice would you give to incorporate this into treatments?
Well, thank you, David, for that question, because in fact it's related with the previous question, the linking. So I work with TCM because TCM allows me to work in holistic approach. This means that I can work the same organ in the physical, energetic, and emotional way. How do I do it? By linking. Linking what? Well, there's different approaches in my methodology. One of them is to use not only the physical function of the organ, but like I said before, for instance, the heart is the seat of the psyche. So if I want to tell the body that I want to work some organ on some parts, but with a mental perspective, I link with the heart, for instance. And in this case, I link different reflexes, but using the energetic and emotional function. Another thing that I do a lot, and in fact it was the first technique that I created, was the yo-yo. And what is it? I work the reflex and the meridian at the same time. So I'm linking the physical and the energetic function at the same time. and I can do it with the entire meridian on the foot, or I can link the reflex with one specific acupressure point that has one specific function. So I'm telling the body that I want that organ to be attached with the function of that meridian point. So I am bringing the whole to the parts. Another thing that I do, since I place the 5 elements of Chinese medicine on the feet, is to connect one element with one reflex, or different elements with meridians. So TCM opens a new opportunity for me, a new world that allows me to work in a holistic way and to improve my performance and the results that I obtain from the patient.
Wonderful, thank you so much. That's brilliant. Chris, this question I want to put to you. This is from Morwenna Gray. Can you please let me know what you would say is the quickest method for calming someone down for nerve pain? Would it be balances, massage, connecting reflex points with the brains, or what would you suggest?
I would say they would all work, but for me, I would go straight to the solar plexus. The solar plexus, of course, being immediately beneath the balls of the feet. And then just to rest the thumbs very lightly on the reflexes, and allow the thumbs to literally sink into the skin until you get a resistance. And then just hold it for a while, and then continue to allow the thumbs to sink in a little deeper until you feel that this is enough for them, and just hold it there. And then as you release the thumbs, do it incredibly slowly. And if you feel they need that again, particularly if they're having breathing issues, then you can match it to their breathing issues as well. And then after this, you can allow any digit to just rest on that reflex until you feel that energy going through. The solar plexus is incredibly powerful reflexes on the feet, particularly good for asthma, hyperventilation, any panic situation. And you can go to it any time during a treatment if you feel that the person is feeling a bit distressed.
Excellent, thank you so much. Moshe, I'd like to come to you for the next question. I don't think Dawn is with us. No, she's not. Do any of the speakers, so Moshe, if I can ask this one to you, have any suggestions for mouth ulcers? I have a 7-year-old boy who has them more often than he doesn't. So blood tests have been done, they are clear. She can't find a trigger, but he is generally an anxious boy with a lot of aggression. The aggression comes at home, but he's good at school, and he's been the same since the age of 2. So ulcers have been with him for now 3.5 years. Moshe, to you, please.
Well, it is a very complex answer that I had. It is based on possibility and a theory, because mouth ulcers can be a very early sign. Mouth ulcers in a child can be a very early sign of Crohn's disease.
Ah.
Since Crohn's disease attacks all the membranes in the body, all the membranes of the digestive system tissues.
Mm-hmm.
And well, we have to understand what an autoimmune disease is. Well, almost every autoimmune disease attacks one tissue in particular. The tissue in particular that the Crohn's disease attacks are all the mucous membranes of the digestive system. Particularly, okay, in 85% of the cases, the attack goes to the terminal ileum, but this is another story. An early sign of Crohn's disease that can be seen in childhood but interpreted later in life. Oh, I had mouth ulcers when I was a child. Well, it might be linked. Now, there is a second element here, and it is when a membrane is is supposed to protect the tissues, and a mouth ulcer is an injury in that membrane, in the mucus of the mouth. So it speaks about vulnerability. Now, where does this vulnerability come from? Well, it can come from some genetic mutation that is one of the basics in the theory to explain the possibility, what is possible to cause an autoimmune disease. So I don't want to go that far because I don't want to seed fear in anyone, but just it can be one of the signs. And the other thing that somehow becomes a part of the same explanation is the stress and the anxiety. Stress and anxiety is one of the most clear environmental factors that can go together with an autoimmune disease. Whatever the stress is, whatever the anxiety, uncertainty, stress, nervousness, or whatever psychopathogenic disorder or cause for the disease. Now, we're speaking about a 7-year-old guy, and it is really very early and of course, I would like to, please not to be misunderstood, I am not diagnosing anyone, but I am only throwing a possibility of these mouth ulcers that have no explanation. That sometimes some doctors would prefer to say, oh yes, probably it is the lack of some vitamin. My answer to this approach would be, what is wrong in the body that this vitamin cannot be absorbed? And therefore, I would suggest, Don, just not to take this very hard, but to take this into consideration and at the right time to take the guy to a gastroenterologist. Because there would be no sign in the body at this age that can indicate that there would be a problem in the future.
Yes.
This is in case, and I touch wood that it is not, in case that it is an autoimmune disease here, I just clear signs of the disease will be seen much later in life.
Okay. Moshe, thank you very much. Very, very comprehensive. That's lovely. We are going to have a question for Chris Stormer next, and this is going to be one of her beautiful images going to be coming up in a moment. Katie from Canada, so she can't be with us because of the time difference, but she says the reflex area for the knees are different on different maps. How do I approach people with osteoarthritis of the knees? And she does also go on to say before and after knee replacements or pain. So, Chris Stormer, please, can we have an answer for this one, please?
Absolutely. I love the feat that suddenly appeared with Moshe.
I think Moshe might.
Obviously, everyone.
I think Moshe might have an answer as well. So, but over to you first, Chris.
He has. But it's wonderful that there are so many different approaches to the feet, and there are so many different foot charts, because every person perceives the feet the way that they've been taught or how it resonates with them. For me, being a medical person originally, I find it the easiest to actually visualize the body anatomically on the feet. So if you look at, have you got that first little chart that I did ready, please?
The first one? Yes, I do. So no problem at all. Let me just get to where it says share screen. And this will now probably... Oh, hang on. Is this the right one?
Hang on, I've got all your charts here. No, that's the second one.
That's the second one.
But we can stay here. We can stay here. It's not a problem.
Fine.
So basically, basically, the way I perceive it, or the universe perceives it, is that we are sitting either in a fetal or crouched position. Now, if you put the limbs in that position on the soles of the feet, you will see that the knee and the nipple reflexes are the same reflexes on the soles of the feet. So if you take it to the other diagram, if you've got that, please, Dave.
Will do,
David?
no problem. Let's just go to the other one. So it's going to be this one.
That's it. So if you look again, as I was saying, going anatomically, the outer ankles are the hip reflexes, and then you take it from the right down to between the shoulder reflexes and the elbow reflexes, and you'll find the knee. The best way to do this is to put your thumbs on the shoulder reflexes, which are protrusions that are just below the little toes. You'll feel them. They feel just like the shoulder reflexes on our body. Then halfway down on the outer edges of the feet, you will find the elbow reflexes. So if you then put your third fingers on the elbow reflexes and then let your second fingers fall halfway between, you will feel like little ledges that feel like a bent knee, a bent patella. Because if you saw in the previous picture, that the knee and the nipple reflexes are the same, you will see that they match up with the secondary nipple reflexes on the tops of the feet. So what I love about reflexology, at the end of the day, we don't even have to have an intention. In fact, it's better if when we do the treatments, is to just hand over to the universe and just empty our minds of anything and everything, and then trust the process, because the energy will always go to where it's needed. So even if you just say knee, the energy knows where to go. And that's the best I can do.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Moshe. You were waving your little mini feet in at the screen. Do you have were you wanting to come in on this one as well?
Well, yes.
I thought you were.
yeah. Just a second. They're coming to say goodbye. So. Where was the question?
So it's about where the point of the knee reflexes is.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, right. Listen, my first approach for the knee reflex, or for all the reflexes in the body, to locate the precise reflex where we have to work is where the pain is. And therefore, if I am working with someone who comes with a problem in the knee, then I will have to explore all the knee reflex area to know exactly where the pain is. Now, this is one approach. A second approach will say, so this is the hip, so this is the hip, and this is the shoulder.
Yes.
So from the cervical plexus, I can connect to the brachial plexus through the scapular bone, and then through the upper limb, through the arm and the elbow.
Yes.
And then the forearm and the hand. When I come from the other side, I come from the hip all the way up to the knee.
Yes.
And then I continue with the forearm.
Yes.
So sometimes we miss with this concept. Sometimes, this can be just a millimeter, it can be a distance of a millimeter from between one and the other one. And the third concept is that for me, when it comes to joints, I consider the joints as a subsystem of the osteoarticular system. That means when it comes to a problem in the knee, or when it comes to a problem in the elbow, if it is a problem in the knee, I will need to work also on the hip. and also on the pelvic floor, and also on the sacral plexus, because this is where the nervous message comes from, and this is where the muscles are. And therefore, my conclusion is the knee will be here, and the elbow will be here.
Lovely, thank you, Moshe. That's great. The interesting thing is we've got we've got the variety. It's not that one is right and the other one's wrong. We've got alternatives, and I would just put in there that if one isn't working for a client, then go for the other. Now we're going to just jump, just so the speakers, you don't panic. I am jumping on purpose. I'll come back to some of the other questions in a moment. This one is a question for Catriona. So this is from Tina Walsh. Again, I don't know. Is Tina with us? I can't. No, she's not. That's fine. So she'd like to ask Catriona, I'd love more information on how to teach reflexology. What qualification do you need to do this, and where is it best to do it? She says, I'm based in Ireland. I've got diplomas in reflexology, diet and nutrition, but obviously she would like to know more. Catriona, what would you advise somebody living in Ireland to do to be able to teach?
Okay, hi Tina. So you're based in Ireland, but a lot of your students will not necessarily be from Ireland and may travel internationally. So it's important that you choose an accrediting body that's internationally recognized. Okay, and there's not a huge list of those in Ireland. So also, make sure it's, there's different modules when you're teaching reflexology in Ireland. Anatomy and physiology is a huge part of it. We often have students that have taken a different qualification and then they want to take an ITEC massage diploma, and often their anatomy and physiology that they've already studied is not sufficient or it's not recognized. So it's important to do a little bit of research beforehand. If Tina wants to get in touch with me directly, she could contact me through my website, goldeneggholistic.com, and we can chat about it. So yeah, I noticed she has diet and nutrition as well, and there's qualifications, there's accrediting bodies that she can also get. She can teach her diet and nutrition as well through that. So ITEC would be one of them. She could teach reflexology and diet and nutrition, and she lists Indian head massage as well. So they're all ITEC diplomas. So it might make sense for her to have one accrediting body like that. But there's different choices. If she wants to get in touch with me, she's welcome to do so.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Catriona. That's excellent information. Very valid. We've got two questions left. We've got one from Claire and we have another from Aldona. Claire, I'm going to come to you first. So Claire, could you ask your question, please? And this one's going to be going to Vanessa.
Oh, yeah. Hi. Thank you so much. I don't have my question written down, but I remembered that I basically was talking about uric acid as congestion in the feet. When I'm working with clients, I know that is a theory in reflexology, and I certainly can feel congestion and the soreness that can come with that goes away as this substance breaks up in the tissue of the feet a bit. And so I'm just wondering what, the panel or whoever it was that you chose for that question has to say about that.
So about uric acid in the reflex points of the feet, the question you actually wrote was, what are the opinions of this theory? And in the combination of the soreness to the acupressure points. That's particularly why I was thinking that Vanessa might be a good one to ask you because of her Chinese traditional medicine background as well. So
right.
Deposits of uric acid, Vanessa, how might they influence you in your understanding of reactions?
Yeah, like as told before, my first technique was the yo-yo. And it was because when I was a reflexology student, I was very impatient. One of the things that really bothered me was at the end of the treatment that the patient still have some crystals on some deposits. So I start thinking of some strategies or some tools that I could use to destroy that crystals faster. And that's why I thought that maybe making the connection between the reflexes and the meridians will help it. And when a reflex has crystals and the acupressure point has soreness or congestion or stagnation or any imbalance, for me the interpretation is that the imbalance of the reflex is not being caused only by the physiological function, but also from the energetic. The point for me is that when the energetic aspect is imbalanced, the physical may or may not be affected. It depends on the function of the acupressure point, because some of them have some functions like spread the wind, or for instance, to help with dizziness. And you know that if the liver has congestion and the acupressure point related with dizziness is congested or have stagnation or whatever, you know that the liver is causing the dizziness, so you don't have to go and search further. But sometimes it happens that that point is related with energetic, emotional, and physiological functions. So doing the connection between both of them will help you to build the puzzle and understand in the first glance what is happening with your patient. This will be a powerful tool to help you to develop your plan of the session, you know, what to do first and what techniques to use, because if the imbalance is mostly emotional, I won't work physical techniques. So I will direct for more emotional techniques or more energetic techniques. That I have different kinds of techniques. So I think that's very useful, especially for understanding what's really happened to your patient, because many times the symptoms or the complaints doesn't show up in medical exams or in blood tests, or many doctors don't find the reason for that, and people came to reflexology as a last resource. So many times the source of the imbalance is not physical, but it may be energetic. And in these specific cases, what Clea talked about is really important, because when you are able to make the connection between the meridians and the feet and the reflexes on the feet, you get a quicker answer. Another thing that I can add is when you start to make the connection not only with the meridians and the reflexes, but also with the elements, the 5 elements in the feet, then the answer is more clear and more faster. So I think you're on the good path, Clea. I don't know if I answered you, but thank you.
That's wonderful, Vanessa. Thank you so much. Aldona, I just want to thank you so much for waiting patiently for so long. And you have our final question. I believe your question was for Moshe. So would you be able to read your question to us, please?
Hi, I actually got answers throughout the previous questions, or partially the answers I have, because I need to admit that pain is something that I'm very interested in. That's why I would like to address my question or questions, because the question a little bit developed since I originally sent it to you.
That's fine.
Moshe, but he already answered partially for that. Is the reflexology for pain? And sorry, Moshe, I'm not very familiar with your technique, so I'm not sure whether it is a set of different techniques or a sequence. That's why my question is quite general. Sorry, but the top, you call it, yeah, top techniques using for reflexology in pain, is it used just for the, or it's more effective when using it for the structural pain when it comes to bones, joints, or is it also for very useful and effective for neurological pains, or in autoimmune disorders and pains that come from them, or when the cause of the pain is not known? I had a client with the pain in a left side of the stomach, and no of the examinations, tests, scans, etc. kind of found out what was the cause of the pain, but the pain was there. Also, my question is developing a little bit more because I see and I understand the physical body that is mirror of the emotional and mental body, and of course energetic body as well. And often the imbalances in those energetic and emotional and mental body show in the physical body. So my further question to that top techniques is whether they are very effective or how long they are effective if the client himself doesn't address the original source of suffering, which is often in physical, in emotional, mental trauma, or in even spiritual disturbance. And
can we go with it? Because otherwise we're never going to remember the whole question.
I remember. Question. No worries. I remember. Okay. And you know, and while Donna was asking her question, I was stretching my mind mentally. So where to hit first, and so. But do you have time until the evening? Because the answer will be a bit long, and I would not like to abuse of your time. Let's make, let's answer this very nice question in sections. First section, let me explain you what TOP is. TOP is not a trademark. TOP is treatment of pain. It is an acronym that stands for treatment of pain. Now, why the treatment of pain and not pain management? Because I don't like the term pain management. The pain management suggests me that there is something that I have to manage and I have to let it exist. While my approach, my therapeutic approach with reflexology is that we have all the sources to help the person get rid of the pain, as long as the body allows it. And therefore, you would probably see that there is top 1 and top 2. And the main difference between these two things explains a part of the question. Top 1 is direct, well, because it is a long course of, when I give it online is approximately 16 sessions. I have divided it into 2 sections, top 1 and top 2, being that top 1 will deal with all the pain that is curable. That pain, that means if you have tendinitis or a bursitis or a structural pain or a pain due to an injury or any source of pain, this is top 1. And of course, it works with the whole body, not only with the structures, but giving you enough skills and tools to deal with the pain in every single part of the body. Being it, for example, when I give this course, and please excuse me, David, because this is not advertising for the course, but
no, it's fine. It's fine.
It is a part of the answer.
It is.
When I address the pain, I try to address the pain in all the possible aspects. In top 1, for example, I teach my techniques for migraine and for premenstrual syndrome, explaining that these 2 illnesses are related to some emotional issues. So what is the underlying emotion that is behind the problem? So to understand it and to favor some kind of communication with the client, as it was the first answer of this meeting today that Vanessa answered. So the pain goes everywhere. And the most important thing is, in the concept of TOP, is understanding where the pain comes from or where it is originated and how it behaves, where does it go, how does it affect the functionality of the whole body and the person, etc., 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 because I believe that we have enough tools to eliminate the pain in most of the cases. And if we can eliminate the pain, so, well, maybe it is a question of time, maybe it is a question of how do you work with the client, not only the reflexes that you use, it is how do you combine the whole sequence, how do you combine or choose bits of techniques, because the whole top concept is about 32 techniques so far, 32. On the other 20%, I have the non-curable diseases. And this is the top two. And in top two, I have included fibromyalgia and autoimmune diseases. When I say that there are not curable, it is because I don't believe that fibromyalgia is curable because of its origin, first of all. And I don't believe that autoimmune diseases are curable at this moment because there is not enough knowledge to say or to pinpoint what is exactly the perfect answer to explain the origin of an autoimmune disease. And therefore, when we treat the pain in a patient with an autoimmune disease, first of all, we have to understand what an autoimmune disease is. Second, what is the specific autoimmune disease that this person suffers? And the third thing is, how can I make that this person enjoys the better quality of life possible, knowing that an autoimmune disease will behave in the body as a succession of flare-ups and remissions. So for me, it is very important to prevent all the flare-ups and to expand all the remissions, so the person can trust the body again, and of course, trying to stimulate in the better and smoothly and friendly way possible all those tissues that are affected by the illness and all the others that are affected for the malfunctioning of the body. When you ask for a specific case, like in multiple sclerosis, we enter a very complex syndrome, which is an autoimmune disease, but it is 100 different diseases. So you have to better know what is, well, the origin of multiple sclerosis is exactly the same for all the patients, but the expression of multiple sclerosis in every one of the patients that suffer it is a completely different illness, because sometimes in some it can affect coordination and movement, in some others can affect probably, the grip and the eyelids and the swallowing, because it is where is the part of the brain that has been affected by multiple sclerosis. So when we, in my approach of these illnesses, I try to make a differentiation, what is every illness, so to adapt a general concept for everyone. And the general concept is sedation, relaxation, and boosting the parasympathetic system as to work as a sedative for the stress, and then work on specific techniques for every one of the illnesses. And this is top two, which is the 20% of the clients. Did I answer you?
Thank you. That was complex question and complex answer, but thank you very much. Yeah, I need to admit that I haven't had an idea of the top. I've read on Facebook on it, but I was thinking that it was more or like a treatment setup, like, in the certain sequence of treatment of techniques that you use and how we can use that. But yeah, that is more complex, and as you said, there is a big knowledge behind it and different techniques. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
It is now my great pleasure to say thank you so much to everybody that's asked questions, and thank you also so much to the panel for sharing your knowledge. I have learnt so much during this session. I'm sure we all have. And may I just say that this has been an amazing time of sharing, of knowledge, of being able to be with like-minded fellow reflexologists as well. So may I say to everybody, thank you from my heart. Stay well, stay safe, and see you another time for another panel.
Thank you very much, David, for
Yes,
inviting,
thank you.
and for creating this fabulous space. I think it was absolutely amazing. And I am ready to participate in another panel if you want.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.